Okay, so I'm here in the darkroom working on developing a 100-foot roll of Kodak Double X Negative film, 16mm movie film. So here we have the Morse G3 model rewind tank. I'm not going to open it because the film is inside of it, already loaded onto the reels that are inside. All the chemistry goes in through the funnel on top, it's light tight, and then the cranks move the film from one side to the other through the chemistry. This tank will develop both 16mm and 35mm. So the reel is actually collapsible. It needs half as much chemistry in order to develop 16mm as it does 35mm. It will require about 34 US fluid ounces of liquid to immerse the reels. So I'm going to use this graduated pitcher to measure up 34 ounces because I don't want to overfill it, and it's just a waste of time to pour liquid in and then drain that liquid out. So again, this is just plain water. It is warmer than the working solution is going to be, but this is sort of a dirty, nasty way to develop film anyway. It's not going to look perfect, so I really don't care too much. So normally when you are developing 35mm still film in a Patterson tank, there's a set of timings for each thing, for pre-wash, developer, stop bath, fixer, wash, wetting agent, all of these things. But because the rewind tank moves the film back and forth through the chemistry, the only bit of the film that's being exposed to the chemicals is what's in between the reels. So you have to sort of multiply out the time so it's longer than it normally would be. So a pre-wash, a pre-wet would in a Patterson tank might be only a minute, but in this case I'm going to multiply that and do it for 5 minutes and try to get 5 sort of reels back and forth from left to right in order to wet the entire 100 feet of 16mm film. So that's the pre-wet step that's done. Normally the time for that would be a minute. So instead I did it for 5 minutes. The next step is I'm going to drain that out and I'm going to add the developer and run that in the tank and run the film through the developer. We're going to be using Sprint standard black and white negative developer, which is not the standard developer, but it is the developer we have in the darkroom, and it's just a run-of-the-mill black and white negative developer. So I'm going to use that and have been using that because it's abundant. We have a lot of it, and that's what I have. Normally, you would typically use Kodak D19 or D76, but I don't have that, and rather than go and buy it, I'm using what we have. And I've been getting images, and I don't see any reason why I should change that. The tank is going to require 34 ounces of liquid. Sprint standard developer is a 1:9 ratio, which means that every 1 part of developer is 9 parts of water. So let's say, for example, we're doing a 35mm reel, a spool of still photos. That Patterson tank, that single roll, is going to be 1 ounce of developer and 9 ounces of water. In our case, we've got 34 ounces that we need. That adds up to 30 and a half, say 30 or 31 ounces of water and 3.5 ounces of developer. So what I've done is I've pre-poured the developer, and then I'm going to add the water to the pitcher and bring it to temperature or just below working temperature, and then add the developer so that I can pour it in. 3.5 ounces of developer. There's an instruction manual that I have for the tank that I found online, and it says at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, working solution, 15 minutes of constant agitation in the tank is appropriate for development. So I'm going to take some steps, because before you start to do your development, it's 15 minutes, but it's 15 minutes of constant cranking back and forth through the tank. So if you've got something to do, or if you're easily distracted, or if you've got other things that are sort of pulling you away, don't do it. Like, because what's going to happen is like you're going to miss, you're not going to be cranking consistently, you're going to stop, you're going to start, and then a section of your film is going to sit in the chemistry longer than another section, and you're going to get very inconsistent results. You really you got to pour the developer in fast, and once it's fully in the tank, start the timer and crank to get the film to run through the chemistry at an even and rapid pace so that all the film is exposed to the chemistry in relatively an equal amount. It's not going to be like laboratory conditions because you're doing it by hand. And so you will get inconsistent results. But if you walk away from it, or you slow down or you stop, you're going to get very inconsistent results. So now that the developer stage is done, that was 15 minutes of going back and forth, reel to reel. Drain the developer down the sink drain. And the next is to use a stop bath. Now, typically the stop bath for a Patterson tank of 35 is only 30 seconds with constant agitation. So I'm expanding that out to 5 minutes of stop. So I need to pour out 34 ounces of stop bath into the tank and run it through for 5 minutes. So that's the stop bath finished. Stop bath gets replenished, or rather it gets reused. So rather than put the stop and the fixer, but the stop bath in this case down the drain, we're going to put it back into the cistern where we drew it from so it can get reused by another artist. After stop bath is removed, the next step is fixer. So the fixer is going to, after we do that step, we can then open up the tank and we can expose the film to light without damage. But that's the next step. We also are going to need 34 ounces of fixer, pour it into the tank. Normal time for fixer is 5 minutes on a Patterson reel of 35. In this case, we're going to stretch that out similar to the developer and do that for 15 minutes of fix with constant back and forth cranking. Okay, so fixer is done. That was 15 minutes back and forth. Similar to the stop bath, we are going to pour the fixer back into the vat. It's going to get reused. So our next step after draining the fixer out is to wash the film. So washing the film usually involves immersing it into a water bath for 5 minutes if it's an immersion tank. But in this case, we can't do that because we're going to be moving the film back and forth. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to open up the tank and I'm going to add fresh water and open the drain plug and run water through the tank while I spin the reels back and forth for 5 minutes. All right. We got pictures. So now that we washed the film, we need to add a wetting agent like Photo Flow, Kodak Photo Flow, which helps prevent streaking and water spots on the film. Again, normally you would immerse the reel in the Photo Flow, but we can't do that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pour water mixed with Photo Flow into the tank and cycle it back and forth for about 5 minutes. After adding Photo Flow to the film, we need to get it off of the reels from inside the tank and into the drying cabinet over there. It's going to be a little funky because I have to actually handle the film. It's not on a reel or on a spiral that's going to go directly into the drying cabinet. So I am going to get my hands on it, which is not ideal, but this is how it's going to go. I'm going to use a set of rewinds and get the film onto a standard projection reel and then use this to work the film into the drying rack so we can dry it. It's a microfiber cloth. Just going to squeegee off the water so it'll go into the reel a little bit drier. I'm just using very light pressure with the microfiber cloth on the film, and I can see the pictures on the film, but I don't want to use too much pressure and tension. I'm not really trying to dry the film. I'm just trying to guide it out of the tank and onto the reel so we can move it into the drying tank. It's 100 foot, this is a 100-foot reel. It's a 100-foot spool, but there's a little bit extra. So there's sort of dead film on the start and end. So you have to be careful that it doesn't, go everywhere, spill all over the place. Okay, so now it's reached the end of the spool. I'm going to release it. Film's out. Now it's time to put it in the dryer. So what I've tried to do here is to run a continuous sort of loop of the film sort of over the back pin, and then down, and then up, and then over the front pin, and then down, and then up, in very gradual, gentle loops. So I don't want a lot of tension in the film. I don't want to have any kinks in the film, and I'm trying to keep it off the floor and away from sticking to each other. It's not going to be perfect, right? Where the film is resting on these pins up here, it's going to be an indentation, like it's going to be a crinkle, a little bit of a bend. It's not going to be perfect, but we're sort of doing this by hand, so we're accepting that perfect's not going to happen. So after drying the film and then spooling it up using the rewinds, I added white leader to the top and tail, the head and tail of the film, so it could get loaded into a projector. The next step is going to be to take these 6 rolls of film, the last one's in the dryer now, and get them scanned. So we can see what's on them. I can see the images through the loop on the light table, but I don't exactly know how the camera is performing, whether the image is stable, exposures and focus are right. I mean, I think it's good. I just am not sure. Scanning is a challenge because it's expensive. There is a local place near where I live in Pennsylvania that does sort of like capture your home movies as digital files, and it's very affordable, but the quality is not going to be as high as going to a professional lab. I'm going to do that because I don't have a functioning projector. I have 2 projectors, 60mm projectors, but they need to be serviced and lubricated because they're not up to speed. And negative film is very delicate, and I don't want to run it through a projector and risk burning it. So I'm going to bring these 6 rolls of film to the local place, and it's going to take a couple weeks, and then I'll follow that up with another video. But this is the procedure for hand developing 16mm movie film. This is the first time that I've tried to do this. It's time intensive, it's a little monotonous, but I'm excited to see what the results are as a cost saving measure, right? Because when you shoot on film, you actually spend 3 times. You spend for the stock, you spend for the processing, and you spend for scanning. And in the case of 16mm, a roll of 16mm, 100-foot roll of fresh Kodak film is $60. Development is about $60, and then scanning is about $60. So if I can knock down the cost of processing, knock down the cost of scanning, and maybe shoot expired film that I get off eBay, because I'm not that terribly worried about professional level quality, I can do a lot more shooting on 16, and that's the goal. So thanks for watching.